You are a vicious snowflake. Here's your look at the McFarlane Toys movie Maniacs, Mandy's Red Miller. An epic action revenge thriller that follows Red Nicolas Cage, a hardened logger living a peaceful life with his girlfriend Mandy in a small rural town. When Mandy is brutally attacked by a group of religious fanatics led by delusional Jeremiah Sand, Red will stop at nothing in order to exact his bloody revenge. Well, at least we don't have to worry about the bees this time around. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the brand new movie Maniacs, Mandy's Red Miller. Grabbing the tape measure as I am right now, I'm going to measure to the top of the figure's head. While I'm doing this as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that, of course, did provide this sample of Red Miller that we could have a look in this review. The movie Maniacs statue of Miller stands at about 6¼ inches in height, or it's going to be about 16 centimeters tall. Why don't we compare Red with one of the movie Maniacs we just recently looked at here on this channel? Here's what the figure looks like with it Chapter 2's Pennywise the Clown. Had to make sure I put in Chapter 2. Not that it really matters, it's still Pennywise the Clown. Could you imagine the two of these guys teaming up in a movie? We think that Pennywise is scary, and yet I'm sure if he was to hang around with Nicolas Cage, even Pennywise himself would go crazy mad. Some stuff does come included with Miller. First of all, the figure comes included with not only a standee, but also a card that can stand inside the standee. The card itself, in fact, actually, I just pulled this out for a second, does, of course, have a crazy Nicolas Cage on the front, Red Miller down below. And then on the back, it's a certificate of authenticity. It's a very limited run of only 3,000 copies. The one that was provided me by McFarlane Toys just happens to be P9. I always like to hold on to these. I always usually like to display these also on the shelf with all my movie Maniacs. I just think it adds a little bit of extra pizzazz. Speaking of pizzazz, down below, get a good look at actually the little logo that we've got here down below. It does actually say Mandy, although it's really kind of hard to make that out. It looks like actually a spider. Well, maybe not necessarily a spider, but it does actually kind of look in a way like a heart, which I guess is supposed to be the idea. But it's a nice little standee. Of course, I always will put that with my actual displaying of these movie Maniacs on the shelf. We also get ourselves, just looking to the side here with the question mark box, we'll get to that in a second. The figure also comes included with a cardboard standee. Now, the standee itself does have the fourth scene, all sort of blood-soaked in red. It's very faint and hard to see, but enough to know at least that it's a pair of trees, or a whole foliage of trees. Attaching, by the way, these are of course, the curved acrylic or clear plastic display stand standees. You get one on the bottom, and then you get one that goes on the top. I mean, really, you don't even necessarily need to use them at all when it comes to standing them, but it does add a little bit of extra showmanship just to have these on the top and on the bottom. And again, we'll just clip these in place. The only unfortunate downside of these is that they take up a lot of real estate space. I'm sure I've said this a couple of times in earlier reviews, that when it comes to movie Maniacs, my shelf space is fleeting. Sure, yes, you could easily have Nicolas Cage standing in front of the backdrop, but then you have to realize, though, that the backdrop is also then taking up a little bit more space. And then if you have to have yourself, like, for example, Pennywise, if you wanted to have the figures really close together, because, of course, you don't have a whole lot of quarters to work with, then, of course, all of a sudden, Pennywise, maybe this actually would be a fitting enough background for Pennywise. It may not work necessarily as well with, say, Harry Potter. Moving that back out of the way. Then, of course, the figure also comes included with a mystery box. I don't honestly know what's inside the mystery box. Promise, I haven't even checked inside. There isn't any tape at all either, so I don't even really need myself a knife. I'm just going to open up one of the flaps here. And it looks like we've got a couple of things inside. The first thing we have is a sticker. Actually, we've got a couple of stickers. Let's pull those out first. One sticker is the Cheddar Goblin. Love the fact that they included it. And the other sticker is the Tiger. Funny enough, though, we just, in the last little while, we've been looking at, again, some Diablo 4 figures. I wanted to bring in one of the stickers. They seem to be of the same size. But the one thing I did mention that I wish these stickers could have done, they managed to succeed in doing when it came to Red Miller. That these stickers look to be like you can peel them off. You don't have to take off the entire border along with it. I wish they could do something similar like this, like the Cheddar Goblin and the Tiger. Something similar with the Diablo 4 and also the World of Warcraft figures we've been looking at lately here as well. I would love to see that they could probably do something similar to that. So love the fact we get ourselves the Cheddar Goblin. Love also the fact we get ourselves the Tiger. But then also included with this, you get yourself the chainsaw. Now, you may be looking at this right now. I just grabbed my knife, by the way. So quick I did that, you probably missed it. It brought in my knife for a second there. We do have ourselves the actual chainsaw they uses. You can see there on the front I think it says Ermi. On the other side, doesn't say anything. It is a little on the more warped side. you can see they've added a little bit of a wash to it. Now, there is a peg right here, because you're probably looking at the figure and you're thinking, well, where would he be able to have the means to hold the chainsaw? Well, if you look at actually the back of the statue, there's a hole right on the back, and you just simply attach it to his leather bandolier. I don't know if would I want to do it like this way? I'm trying to think of actually how he had it in the movie. I guess blade side up probably wouldn't be a good idea in case it happens to turn on. Yeah, you wouldn't really want that to happen. So we're just going to dowel it. Just going to kind of keep continuing to twist it until finally it attaches onto the back of the figure's body. And we'll just have it attached that way. It also makes it look a little bit nicer, I think, from the front, rather than actually having the blade sticking out, the teeth of the chainsaw sticking up that way. The figure or statue, let's just actually move all this stuff out of the way so it's not going to be pulling our attention away from, of course, the craziness of Nicolas Cage. The figure also has him wielding the axe. Now, the axe looks like it is a detachable piece, at least detachable down below here. I would imagine that you'd be able to detach it here, and then you'd be able just to simply loop it out from his fingers. There is a section, at least from the fingers and the thumb, that there's a gap in between, that for all intents and purposes, you could detach this. And I guess if you really wanted to, I'm curious, could we take the axe completely out of his hand? Okay, we can. I wonder if you could take yourself the chainsaw. Now I got myself thinking here. Take the chainsaw, take the handle. Yeah, you could take the handle, really, of the chainsaw, or could you maybe even have it up here? Ooh, now I've got myself thinking here. I'm going to just bring the plastic out just a little bit. This is all impromptu, by the way, because I really wasn't expecting him to actually have a chainsaw with him. I mean, he has it in the movie. Glad that he actually did come include with it as well. I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm just going to pry the fingers a little bit away from the palm. I really should have heated this up. Yeah, you could have really the chainsaw also in his hand. And I guess if you wanted to. Not that, I mean, you could say that, hey, buddy, that's too many weapons. But keep in mind who we're talking about here. It's Nicolas Cage. Maybe I'll put the axe in his one hand like that, and then I'll have the chainsaw in the other. Is it supposed to look like that? I'm going to run with that, at least for right now, because after all, it's Nicolas Cage. Let's just, at least for right now, take those away. I might really come back to those in a second. Getting, though, a closer look at Nicolas Cage's face. As Red Miller, still pretty much Nicolas playing. Anytime you really see him in the movie, let's face facts, Cage is always Cage. But he does certainly do a good job in Mandy. Crazy, over the top, head sculpt-wise. Could this be the only time, the one only time we've ever gotten ourselves a Cage figure? I'm trying to think of any other character that you ever would have been in the movies that it would have then warranted having a figure release of him. This might be the first time. With also saying it's a figure, it's not really a figure at all. I mean, there's no articulation at all to the figure. I thought maybe, for example, like the statue would have had some hand articulation, or you'd be able to move the arms or something along those lines, but no. What you're basically seeing that Red Miller's doing right now is all the means that he only has at his disposal. What he does, though, have, while lacking, unfortunately, any posability. First of all, he gets himself a really interesting looking display stand. Like the bloody background of the forestry, he does also have like a red soiled standee that has the printed Mandy logo on the front there. Really nice way of introducing some additional color, because then when you're really looking at the colors of the remaining red, he has a lot of blues, he has a lot of lighter grays, and of course he's got the brown shirt or the brown vest that he has. Some of the other things that you may notice as well is he also has himself the little knife that's holstered on the top. And of course, he does also have, like, you know, again, like the bandolier or like the little strap that he has in the front of the movie, in the movie itself. He is really, though, covered in blood. Not that this was ever really a bloodied variant. It is technically a gold label collection, but I don't think there was ever really a Red Miller released that didn't already have him soaked in blood. The blood does bring some necessary color. It brings a lot of necessary character as well to the figure. I love that head sculpt, though. I mean, again, for what we got for a Nicolas Cage, the fact that this is even probably the first and only figure we're ever going to get of Cage, love the idea that it had to be of Mandy. I mean, yes, there could have been one from the Wicker Man, but, I mean, really, it's only more jokes than anything else. Would we really have wanted a Wicker Man Nicolas Cage? Okay, apparently, yes, we do want a Wicker Man Nicolas Cage. But yes, while the figure doesn't have any posability whatsoever, what he more than lacks in posability, he more than makes up for it with sculpting and painted details. And again, really, for a head sculpt, of really what we've gotten from movie tied-in figures, not counting, of course, cartoons or anything along those lines, but like actual characters that look like the way they did in movies. I think Nicolas might be the closest one that we've gotten from a likeness level, and he's a nice-looking movie Maniacs. Again, I don't know if I would necessarily say, normally I would have said, like, movie Maniacs have kind of been across the board when it comes to what they've chose for characters. You could have Gandalf, we also had the Wicked Witch of the West, Harry Potter. Just some of the characters that they've chose are a little out the door, like, but still, would say like this one actually did turn out nice. And I mean, Nicolas Cage is a pretty crazy looking actor within the movies and out behind the scenes as well. I think he's more than fitting enough when it comes to Movie Maniac release. Again, whether it comes to displaying this guy with the very bloody looking axe, or again, if you wanted to use yourself the chainsaw that also was mystery bagged and boxed inside. Nice little release from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. While we now wrap up the review for the new Movie Maniacs Mandy Red Miller, one thing you may have noticed I've done away with here for final looks, it's usually the same thing I do away with when we look at all these Movie Maniac figures, is the curved cardboard background. Simply because right now, you wouldn't be able to see Nicolas Cage at all. He'd be completely obstructed. So, in subtracting the background, I've now added the chainsaw into his hand. And I'm sure many of you would be looking at this thinking, hey buddy, that's a little excessive, giving him two weapons to wield. Then we have to remember the kind of excessive nature that the actor is usually in all the movies that he's in. Red Miller, maybe doesn't necessarily need to have both weapons, but I do like the idea at least that he can wield both. If you do think, yes, it's a little excessive, buddy, you need to tone that back just a little bit. Of course, you can always take the peg that's provided on the side of the chainsaw and attach it onto the back of the statue's body instead. I keep wanting to call these figures, but really there's nothing articulated figure about them. I do like the way they've also excessively, going back to excessive, I like the way they've excessively added a lot of blood on the front of the figure's face, down the front of his vest, and of course all across the front blade of the axe. Funny enough, he doesn't seem to have it anywhere on his eye area. It looks like he's probably just wiped it away with his hand so he can continue to hack away with whoever's in front of him. Yeah, again, like while these Movie Maniacs don't have any posability at all for them, the original Movie Maniacs that we got way back in the late 90s, early 2000s from McFarlane Toys had at least, if anything, swiveling arms and maybe a rotating head. These newer ones, a little bit smaller in size, but they also possess no posability whatsoever. If you can overlook that, they're not bad little statues. Some, though, a little more fitting for the kind of being Movie Maniacs. I feel like they should be a little bit more horror-oriented. At least for the recent ones that we looked at here. The Pennywise definitely was horror-oriented, and if you've ever seen Mandy, it's definitely one I feel that falls within the parameters of horror. What do you guys think of Mandy's Red Miller? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you seen the movie? And a bigger question also to ask you guys, if you are fans of Nicolas Cage, what's your favorite Cage movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. He's had quite the range of movies, although somewhat ironically, he always tends to play the same character. It's basically Nicolas Cage playing himself. If you guys, in the meantime, did enjoy this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly do want to stick around for more, may not be looking at any Movie Maniacs for at least right now, but we definitely will be looking at some more McFarlane Toys reviews. Those are all in the pipeline. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.